Alrighty, this video is on evaluating algebraic expressions, just what you wanted to do, I'm sure. It's based on the book by Blitzer, Intermediate Algebra for college students. So we're going to go over a few examples, and then I'm going to have you kind of practice on your own. So what's the difference between arithmetic and algebra? The basic main difference is that we use variables when we're in algebra. It's when you started adding letters to math, and it became a little more complicated. So a variable is basically a letter. It represents any kind of variety of numbers, and so sometimes it's more specific, like x is actually representing the number 4, or x can represent a set of numbers. So are all variables always represented by x? No. Sometimes we can represent a variable by y or z or a or b or any letter in the alphabet, even the Greek ones. So when you evaluate an expression, basically what you're doing is you're substituting a number that they give you where the variable used to be. So you're substituting it in. So in this case, they gave you that x in this needs to be 5. So everywhere you find an x, you're going to put 5 in its place. So instead of having an x, you're just going to substitute a 5. All right. Now, we're going to go ahead and add 5 and 4 to make 9. And 3 times 9 is 27. So when you evaluate this expression for x is equal to 5, you'll get 27. Now, if I were to tell you, hey, I want you to evaluate this expression for x is equal to 3. In that case, you would put 3 where there was an x. You would get a different answer. So basically, depending on what x is, it changes this expression. Another example, let's evaluate the expression where x is 6 and y is 4. So everywhere there's an x, we're going to put a 6. And everywhere there's a y, we're going to put a 4. You know, there's an old joke about algebra, taking basic math and making it more complicated. That's what it seems like right now. But when you get into higher level math and sciences, and actually in everyday life, algebra is used. All right, so everywhere there's an x, you're going to do a 6, so 3 times 6. And everywhere there's a y, you're going to put a 4. All right, and then you're going to evaluate it based on that. So 3 times 6 is 18, plus 20, plus 2, over 12 minus 4. So this is 38, plus 2 is 40. 12 minus 4 is 8. So the answer is 5. So if I were to tell you that x is equal to some other number than 6 and y was some other number than 4, your expression would be different. You would have a different answer, but that's okay. You're based it on what they give you. All right, I want you to pause the video and do the bottom two, see what you get. All right, hopefully you got it right. Here are the answers to the bottom two practices. Let's look at again. Section 1.1, let's do a little bit more. All right. We're going to also talk about how to translate English into algebra. Algebra is a different language, so we're going to translate our English words into algebra. So the first thing we need to look at, which I got right off the internet, so it's not mine, is a chart called the language of math. And these are just some of the examples of an English word and then how you would translate it into math. All of these English words right here, you would translate into adding. So if I said the sum of 7 plus 6, then I would say 7 plus 6, or the sum of 7 and 6. I would just add it. If I say the word plus, I'm adding. If I say the word add, I'm adding. If I say 7 and 6, that's adding, and so forth. These words, when you read them in English, will be translated into subtraction. Now be careful because there's less than and less, which are similar, but they're actually decreased. So if I have 6 less than a number, 6 less than a number, I usually put the less than on the right-hand side. 4 minus 2 is the same as subtraction, and so forth. Multiplication keywords, you would replace it with a times sign, or usually we use the dot in math because there's so many times that we use X, so we don't want to get X confused with multiplication, so we usually use this little dot more often. So all of these words in English would be replaced with multiplication. Division, sometimes we use the division symbol, or we just simply put something like X divided by 2. We would just use this symbol, or sometimes people use that one. That's fine. So these are words that would indicate that there's some division going on, and then equals. Okay, so sometimes it's an expression, sometimes it's an equation. If you have these words over here, that would be equals. All right, so let's do a few translations. So when you study the language of mathematics chart, you'll notice a lot of these. So an expression has integers, variables with like adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. But an equation also has integers, variables, fractions, decimals, and so forth. But it also has an equal sign. Notice the equal sign goes with the equation. The expression has no equal sign. All right, so let's do a couple of examples. Write the English phrase into an algebraic expression. Choose different numbers or different letters. So the sum of a number and 5, the number and 5 put together, the sum, I'm going to add them. 7 less than a number. 7 less than, you wouldn't say this. Okay, if I have $7 less than my partner, I take my partner minus 7. I wouldn't take $7 minus what my partner has. Twice a number. 10 less than twice a number. Ooh, so we got twice a number and then 10 less than that. 2 less than 3 times a number. So we've got 3 times a number and then 2 less than that. All right, also, you can do this where this is an actual equation. These are expressions. There's no equal signs. Over here you have equations. Notice you generally, when you have an equation, you have a sentence in English. And so a math sentence has an equal sign. This is a sentence, whereas this is just a phrase. And so a phrase corresponds to an expression, and a sentence usually corresponds to an equation. So the product of 7 and a number, and again, you can use any letter you want to. You can use the letter of your first name or whatever, doesn't matter. So the product of 7 and a number, so 7 times a number is means equals 21. 6 less than 3 times a number, so you had 3 times a number, and you have 6 less than that is 9. All right, now you try. Pause the video, do it, come back and see if you got the right answer. Okay, here's hoping you did well. Again, your letters might not be my exact letters. As long as they're letters, that doesn't really matter. Alrighty. Good luck, and I'll see you when we go to section 1.4.